Hello, and welcome to that Eurovision podcast, Eurovision with a slice of life. My name is Rory, and I'm not doing too bad today. Gradually starting to lose my mind with the quarantine, and how everyone is supposed to be in quarantine for the next however many months that the ministers are telling us to. And yeah, so with me are
Hi, it's Jazzi. I'm also slightly losing my mind with the quarantine. I'm starting to feel like it's going to go on forever, but I'm doing as okay as you can do when you've got nothing to do. But this brings a little bit more into my life, so yeah.
I am also going slightly mad, though less at quarantine and more at marking essays. On the plus side, I have a new microphone, which is nice, so I won't actually be going ow every time I listen to myself back.
woohoo!
And hey, it's Tim. Slight cabin fever, but then I'm used to it. But then again, my mood was just lifted up an hour before this call, so it's all good.
Ooh,
Yeah, no,
hopefully.
yeah, it's because apparently Rotterdam might be hosting next year. They've got a green light to fund the extra money that they might need, so fingers crossed we're going to Rotterdam next year.
Fantastic! Rotterdam 2021, everybody! Woo!
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 Yeah.
It's been obviously like a very big issue just because we didn't know if Rotterdam was wanting to host again, and then there was all of the stories coming out about the amount of money that would have to be put into the contest again. So I think this just puts down a lot more of doubts, I think, and I think that's exactly what we need, especially in these trying times.
Hmm.
But anyway, as great as that is, today we're going to be talking about Ukraine and their approach to the contest. Now, Ukraine's only just been participating since 2003, but in those 15 appearances at the final, they've qualified every single year. And they've actually managed to win the contest two times, making it the best performing ex-Soviet country, as they have managed to rack up the most amount of wins from ex Soviet countries. So I think that's really, really good. Their two wins came in 2004 with Ruslana and Wild Dances, and 2016 with Jamala and 1944. However, despite her triumphant victory in 2016, the worst result came the following year when O Torvald only managed to scrape a dismal, I guess you could say, 24th place. So, with that in mind, how do you think Ukraine takes the contest so seriously, and why do you think that it's so well rewarded?
Hmm. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I think Ukraine has just managed to find a way to find a formula that works ever since they came back in 2016. And somehow, like, they just do whatever it is that suits them, and it somehow just works. Of course, in the beginning, like, they'd say, oh no, the song wins. And then somehow it just manages to revamp the hell out of it, and it suddenly becomes a contender. So that formula has seemed to have worked for Ukraine, and it seems to be working well for them, considering that they're only one of the countries that have 100% success rate going in from the semi-final. So keep doing what you're doing, Ukraine. That's all I'm going to say.
Interesting that you say that there's sort of a formula to it, because I think one of the things with Ukraine is that they're such an unformulaic country.
Hmm.
Everything that they send every year always seems to have something that is hard to explain, but it doesn't feel like they send the same thing every year. There's always
Hmm.
something a little bit different about it, and that sort of uniqueness really helps it as well.
I agree. I also think that Ukraine also sends stuff that's very different to what any other country in the contest in a specific year has sent. Like, either via its staging or via the song itself. Like, I don't think like stuff like Dancing Lasha Tambai you could see any other country sending apart from Ukraine. And like there's like it's also a lot to do with their staging as well. Like their stagings are also very different and they stand out from anything else. So televoters will be inclined to pick up the phone and vote for something that actually stands out to them.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I always feel that Ukraine is very meticulous in all of its planning. So, like, it takes every single aspect of their participation very seriously. So, for example, the national final Vidbir, everything is very much transparent. Everything. It's why Vidbir can go on for almost hours and hours and hours. Because they want to show how transparent they are and to make sure that they are making the most informed decision. And that even translates even onto the big stage when, for example, when Jamala was giving her rehearsals in Stockholm, she wore one dress in the first rehearsal and she wore a second dress in the second rehearsal, and she asked journalists and other press people which dress was their favourite. And so the whole aspect of the performance, it's very much written in the details, and I think that's a big part of where their success comes from, because they want to appeal to the people who are watching at home, to the people who are voting, and I think that's a very clever thing, I think, from Ukraine's part.
Like every aspect that Ukraine bring to Eurovision is carefully thought out, from the outfits to the stage and to even the songs, because at times, like when Ukraine feel like they may not have sent the best choice, they revamp the song and make it the best they possibly can. And they just carefully plan every single detail to get the best possible result they can out of the song and the artist that they have. Because like a lot of the artists that have gone for Ukraine are actually really big names, so like within the Ukrainian music industry, I've noticed. So these are artists that have a reputation to uphold even beyond the contest. So they know that the result and what they bring to the stage has to be good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the main thing is that Ukraine takes the contest extremely seriously, because it's almost, as with every other country, of course, it's representing the country and representing what the people of that country like. And so they want to make sure that their choices are, meticulously thought out, very much planned out, from the song, the staging, the outfits, practically every aspect needs to be 100% like vetted, really. So, and I do really appreciate Ukraine for it, but it has gotten into some controversies where it could almost be too controlling. But it's, again, a concept that's very hit and miss for some countries. Ukraine quite regularly does manage to hit it on the head, but sometimes it can completely miss the mark. But I'll get into that a little bit later on anyway.
Let's just hope you wouldn't ask a lot of uncomfortable questions, though, Rory.
Oh, no uncomfortable questions from this end at all. Actually, do you know what? Let's get into that. So, in 2019, the whole Ukrainian fiasco, if you didn't know, Maruv was supposed to be representing Ukraine with the song Siren Song. However, when it emerged that Maruv was due to perform in Russia and had concerts in Russia, the Ukrainian national broadcaster, UAPBC, essentially made Maruv sign a contract if she wanted to that would essentially limit her interactions with the press and her own opportunities to improvise on stage as well. And she also had to cancel her gigs in Russia as well at the same time. And given the fact that it was too restrictive for her, that's why she decided to cancel. And in respect for her decision, many of the artists who had participated in Vidbir 2019 also stood by Maruv and refused the opportunity to go to Eurovision, which caused Ukraine to withdraw. and that's why we didn't get to see them in Tel Aviv. So why do you think Ukraine handling of that whole situation, including the way that Jamala had done with the Crimea is Ukraine, with that whole fiasco, do you think they handled it well, or do you think that there was a lot of shortcomings there?
Definitely a lot of shortcomings. I'm just going to say that because of the fact that why add her into the competition in the first place if she was going to end up winning and it was going to end up in this fiasco, and it just ended up her not being able to participating, and then which led to Ukraine withdrawing. So you imagine how much fine they would have gotten because of the fact that they've withdrawn
At the last minute.
like so close to the contest. And then another thing would be if you think about it, it's kind of like a domino effect, maybe of another person that was supposed to participate in place of Maruv.
Ooh.
If you know the name that I'm talking, Rory, I think you should know the name.
I know who you're thinking of. I know who you're thinking of.
I was like, you wouldn't think that one person withdrawing from Vidbir would cost this fiasco.
I mean, given how much she was of a fan favorite the 2 previous years, I'm honestly not surprised.
But yeah, seriously though, they could have handled it. What I don't get is why they would have placed her in the competition if it was going to end up in this fiasco, and they knew about the fact that she was performing in Russia and she was, signed to a Russian record label. And also another one thing that I wanted to point out, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, she won the televote.
Ooh, okay.
The people have spoken. They wanted her to go. Why I don't get is why they didn't honor that. Because I think she ended up winning the televote and she got second in the juries. If I've got that right, someone correct.
Yeah, so she did come second in with the juries, and she did win the televote. Usually they give you the stats for it, but I'm not surprised though. I mean, given the fact that the performance was so good,
Yeah, so everyone was heartbroken when they announced their withdrawal and they couldn't find anyone. Or some of them were like, okay, that's your karma for you for doing that and don't want to do that. But in other sense, I do get why Ukraine did not want Maruv to be the representative. And it's a political thing that I don't really want to put myself into because I don't want to cause any arguments with anyone. So I will leave it at that.
I think there is a discussion to be had generally about the way that Eurovision sort of takes over the performers' lives for not just that couple of weeks where they're rehearsing and performing, but for a good few months before the contest. An article that Suri wrote a couple of years back, who represented the UK, and looking at that, you really see sort of just how much this contract takes over your life, the fact that you are sort of being put forward by this broadcaster and you have to sort of comply with their regulations, you do certain things, like if you're representing the BBC, you can't really promote your own music while you're doing it because the BBC doesn't allow advertising, that sort of thing. And I feel like what happened with Maruv is almost an extension of that. It's sort of that taken to its extreme. The amount of control that they wanted to enforce on their artist, because the artist is essentially theirs for the next few months until the contest is over.
I do think that the contract that Maruv had was very, very restrictive. And it was like telling her, I don't know if it was to say things that were positive about Ukraine and stuff. Also, she had to stop all her concerts in Russia and stuff. That could affect her livelihood, and she could lose money potentially from cancelling those concerts. So I understand why she didn't accept the invite to represent Ukraine. I also understand why the other artists refused out of respect, but also what didn't it come to light that a lot of the artists that were in the final in Vidbir would have also had the same restrictions because they had also in the past performed in Russia. I don't know if that is actually the case. So I know, like, for 2020 they had the same contract, but a lot of the artists that participated in 2020 had never performed in Russia, and so I think a lot of it is to do with their cultural identity. However, the televoters still chose to stand by her, so they should have respected the televoters' decision and not made the contract as restrictive as what it was.
It does actually, what you were saying about the cultural identity does ring true, really, because I've read an article on over at our friend's site at ESC Insight, and it was a thing that UAPBC had made sure that there was a lot more of a Ukrainian centric view of, like, the artists. So any of the songs that would be performed had to be in another language would have had to have been Ukrainian. I don't think there was supposed to be any form of Russian lyrics in there at all. And a lot of the artists obviously had to have Ukrainian citizenship, so it's all very much centered around, you are from Ukraine, you are representing Ukraine. So they still have those restrictions that Maruv had in place, but they just brought in a whole new load of artists who fit their bill more so than last year, I guess.
Those of you who've watched Vidbir before, because, like I say, this is sort of my first year really sort of paying attention to a lot of, or do you think that made any sort of major changes to what the lineup looked like? Do you think it the quality or the sorts of music that we were seeing were different? Do you think it was the change of that visible?
I think it would have stopped some artists like performing or taking part, because obviously they had that rule where if you'd performed in X country since this X date, then you can't participate in Vidbir at all. So looking at it, when I saw the lineup this year, I didn't know half of them, completely honest, which in fairness can be flip side into a good thing, because it actually means that we're getting a better range of diversity of artists and genres in Vidbir. And as with Ukraine, with sending something authentic and something different, and they think about diversity, I think it's beneficial in some way. So you can kind of see the two sides of it. So, like, the fan favorites that the Eurovision fans might have, you might not see them, but at the same time, you'll have new artists who are getting these exposure based on their technicality, I think. But personally, it gives newer artists their time to shine.
I watched Vidbir. I used to watch it in 2016 and 2017, just when the new format had kicked in, following Ukraine's return to the contest after their withdrawal in 2015. And it was a lot fresher of a national final than they had previously, possibly because they had a partnership. They partnered with STB, a private TV channel. So
did you just say STD?
No. STB. STB. Not STD. Otherwise, we'd be wondering, maybe there might be something going on in Ukraine, maybe. But no, STB was partnering with UAPBC, and that's part of the reason why there was a lot more of a fresh look of the national selection, and there was a lot more sort of diversity. Going into Vidbir this year, I knew a couple of the artists going in. I knew Alina Ivashenko, because she was on The Voice Kids, and Tina Carroll was actually her coach in that sense. So kind of that created a little bit of a conflict of interest, really. But similarly as well, I also knew Katia Chili as well. She's a really well-respected Ukrainian ethnic performer. She was also on The Voice as well, in the same year that Jamala and Tina Carroll were The Voice coaches as well. But you could tell a lot more compared to 2016, there was a lot more ethnic songs in 2020. And there was a lot more of a sense that there was a Ukrainian feel to it. There was a lot more folky songs. So, for example, 99, Katia Chili's song, Solive, even for example itself. But there was a lot more also diversity in terms of the styles of songs. So, for example, we had Fosho, who were a black trio of three sisters. And there was a kind of a bit of a controversy about them because obviously Ukraine is still a little bit socially conservative. So there was a kind of a bit of a debate about whether or not they were even Ukrainian. Obviously, they didn't qualify for the final of Vidbir, but their impact was actually quite heavy, especially on the Euro fans as well. Just because it was something a bit different, because as well they also had rap in there and it actually sounded quite contemporary. So there was a lot more kind of musical diversity and also kind of visual diversity as well. So I think as Vidbir has gone along, it has kind of morphed into something that is a bit more representative of what the Ukrainian music scene and what Ukraine as a whole can actually be, if you kind of understand what I mean.
Yeah. I didn't watch Vidbir 2020, but I did listen to a lot of the songs. And a lot of the songs like that were in Vidbir, you wouldn't hear in any other national selection. And it really felt like they had developed their own cultural identity as a country, and also going onto the Eurovision stage. And that they were very much like, this is Ukraine, this is us, this is what we want to show to an international audience. And I do think that's really important, and I do think a lot of any of the songs that they had sent would have stood out at Eurovision, and you would have known it was Ukraine. And I do think that's really important, as well as having the song very well polished. Like I think they revamped Solive, didn't they?
They did, just a little bit, just kind of tweaking.
And so it would have been very samey as they've done at Eurovision, where the staging, the outfit, the song would have been very well thought out, and everything would have been perfect for Eurovision, no matter what they sent. They also had a lot more variant styles than Vidbir usually has. Like, it wasn't all just like typical pop songs this year.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot more variants. Like, they wanted something that would appeal to everyone, so they knew they were sending the best song for them.
Yeah. That sounds pretty true, really, because you need to attract the attention not only of everyone else, but your own home crowd first before going off to a big stage such as Eurovision.
Discussed in the UK episode.
Yes, which you can listen to on Spotify. I will shamelessly plug this until my dying breath, until my last breath. Actually, something I wanted to maybe pick your brains on is obviously pre-withdrawal in 2015, Ukraine had been seen as a bit of a powerhouse, especially as you could see with their results, because before their withdrawal in 2015, they had already scored 1 win, 2 second place finishes, and 4 other top 10 placements, really, from 2003 up until 2014. But since their return to the contest, obviously they had their win with Jamala, but after that, a lot of the reception towards Ukraine's entries and their placements has been a lot kind of dampened due to, say, for example, Autofill coming 24th, Melavin coming 17th, and of course, Maruv being completely disqualified. So what do you think could have caused that?
I think with Autofill, like, I think it was a rock entry. It was a very, like, rock entries don't tend to do well at Eurovision in the later years, no matter what country sends them. Like, Viz Like Nya didn't do very well in 2018. So it's like, yeah, rock songs aren't tending to do as well at Eurovision as they used to. So I think that is the main thing with Autofill as to why they just didn't do very well. Melvin, he did do quite well with the televote. He came 7th, but obviously the jury, something was lost in translation in terms of the jury.
Something was lost in translation? I think everything was lost in translation.
Like, the juries just hated it. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what he could have done.
So say that again, Rosie?
Really liked Melvin, and he was robbed.
I like the song too. Like, the staging stood out, and it is something that would make you pick up the telephone and vote for them. But I don't think it's the staging owed to anything that the jury would have ever voted for. It did look a little messy.
Yeah, I think we're at a point for Melvin where the audience got it, but the jury didn't. Because if you look at it, the juries have ranked them really low. And then when the televoting score came in, and it was like, okay, it'll be fine. But I think what it is I can see that Ukraine is, I don't know, just experimenting. I know there's a lot of genre, and it's just roulette whether or not we're gonna get a good song that would appeal to lots of Europeans in one go, or a song with like, nope, it's too generic, it's too boring. I think that might have been the case of like, some people either don't appreciate art, or some people just like don't get it, and it's just too generic for them. I think that's what happened between Autofill and Melvin, in my personal opinion.
I think Autofill was almost too niche, like that genre. Like, you either like that genre or you don't. And clearly, in 2017, a rock song was not on people's agenda to vote for.
I think what hindered Autofill as well was the fact that it was a host entry, and usually host entries don't fare too well. See, for reference, Home, Au Jardin, even though Au Jardin was completely robbed, and that is a mountain that I will die on. So I think, given the fact that it was a home entry, it was likely to suffer at the hands of other songs that made more of an impact, really. For example, Italy and Portugal and Bulgaria, of course. So I'm not surprised with Autofill's placing. I did wish that Melvin was able to kind of work on his pronunciation just a little bit, because even to this day I have no idea what the message of that song is at all. But Ukraine in 2018 was more going after televote points than appeasing the jury, whereas in 2019, had Maruv have gone, that would be more tweaking it so that it would appeal to both televoters due to the kind of the sexualized performance of it all, as well as the juries for its commercial viability and the technical aspect of the song. So I think Ukraine this year go A. I think they would have obviously continued the 100% streak. I do think, though, it may have come mid-table, but like Tim said, I think Ukraine is really just experimenting just to see what Europe likes, and it changes its approach to the contest in Vidbir accordingly the following year.
Yeah, I personally think Maruv would have challenged for the win in Kyiv had she gone to Eurovision. Like, everything that in that song just seemed to work. Like, it was commercially viable. So the juries would have gone for it, and televoters would have just ate it up straight away. This is something that would have appealed to the local, and I think that's one thing that needs to be considered when looking at a potential Eurovision winner. Does it have local mass appeal? And I think Siren's song had that. Like, it would have stood out compared to anything else in the contest. I do really think it would have challenged for the team.
The universe just couldn't cope with Maruv and Tatari in the same place at the same time.
Oh no, it would have been a BDSM all over the place.
Oh god, imagine dragging all that BDSM to Tel Aviv and the hot weather. Ugh.
Can we just take a minute to appreciate the possibility of a Hatari Maruv collaboration?
Ooh, are we planting a seed there, or
I'm planting the seed. I prayer circle, guys, prayer circle.
Prayer circle.
Oh dear. So who is your favorite Ukrainian entry, including Maruv?
Oh, there's a lot of them.
That's the thing, isn't it?
I can condense it to 1 to 2.
Okay.
I'll start it off. I like Verka, and the other one will be Maruv, because Maruv was really high up in my list, and I was so peed off the minute they said nope, we're not going, and no, we're not going with Maruv. It's like, great, we could have been going to Ukraine in 2020, but no.
I guess the ones that I enjoy listening to are Under the Ladder, Shady Lady, and Verka. However, I do really like all their entries, really. Like, I think for me, it's Shady Lady is probably my favourite because it's most to the style of music that I tend to listen to. Like, within the contest and outside, it's just a very fun, dancey pop song. But, like, I love everything they've sent. Like, the Ukraine just need to just keep doing what they're doing, because I enjoy absolutely everything.
Just need to keep giving us the good stuff. I think for me, my favourite, it's really hard. I'm actually going to go really mainstream and say that my favourite is 1944, because I just remember seeing it the first time and having this sort of incredible sort of chill that was so sort of otherworldly, and that was a really sort of special feeling that I so rarely get with anything, that I think just that in and of itself just makes me go, yeah, that's probably my favourite, but there are so many that I adore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Myself, like Jazzi, there's so many good songs in Ukraine, like that Ukraine have sent. For example, Razom Nas Bahato 2005, I think that was really underrated. Tina Carroll, Show Me Your Love, I think that was really a good song as well. Svetlana Loboda, Anti-Crisis Girl, I think that again was such a good
Absolute
song.
banger.
Absolutely. And plus as well, who doesn't love sexy Roman gladiators in Hell Machines? I mean, I don't. If there's a Eurovision fan that doesn't like that, then they're not a real Eurovision fan. But my number one favorite has to be 1944. When I first heard the song, I actually was I was shocked. For honestly, I was speechless for about an hour, really, and I just had to play the song over and over again. I think as well, just the fact that Jamala's win has almost kind of set a cultural reset for the contest, because before Jamala's win, everything was very much kind of manufactured pop. It wasn't necessarily kind of personal. But since Jamala's win, there has been a personal aspect of each winning entry. And I think it's almost like a complete shift in the contest, because people are more shifting from what they're looking at to what they hear and what they feel. And 1944 has actually become one of my most... I think it is my number one song of all time, not even just in the Eurovision context. It's the number one song, my favorite song of all time. Not only just because of how serious it is, but just like the genre and how it manages to blend so many different things. And it also has just managed to get me into the Ukrainian music industry and the sort of music scene there. And if one song can do that, I think that has to be worthy of a favorite entry. Given how we've kind of talked about Ukraine's performance at the contest, do you think that anything can be done really to improve these kind of results, or do you think that Ukraine should just kind of continue its experimentation? If you know any Ukrainian artists, who would you like to see, really?
I don't want them to change. I love pretty much everything they send.
I'm taking a Sweden approach here. Why fix something that's not broken?
That's very true.
They've got 100% qualifying rate. You've got to not qualify for something to be wrong.
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, along with Australia, they're the only countries that have actually been able to continuously qualify for the final. So, I do think that Ukraine should try something completely left field. It's why, if any of you don't follow me on Twitter, you should do, first of all. But also, I am an avid Katya Chili fan. So when Katya Chili's song for Vidbir 2020 came out, I was absolutely shocked, amazed. I loved everything about it because it was so ethnic and folky, and it just had that Ukrainian sense. And I think it's part of the reason why I liked Go A and I liked Krut as well, just because they had that kind of tinge to it. So I think, and a lot of those artists as well, they also were very well received at home and in the fandom as well. So maybe going on next year, obviously Go A will be representing Ukraine next year, and they're hoping to have a 5-song selection as well in the style of Roxin. So I'm hoping that next year, and hopefully for the forthcoming years as well, there will be a continuation of that sort of ethnic vibe, because people like that, especially in countries where you don't necessarily hear it that often. It's very captivating, I think is the right way of saying it.
I'm so excited to hear what they do this year, because Solive was my second, is my second from this year. It was my first for a very long time. And I just think it's such a fascinating and beautiful sound, and I really can't wait to see what they come up with next. I'm so happy that they're coming back, and I'm so excited to get 5 new songs from them.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the Go A national. Well, Solive was also in my top 5 for this year. It's just something that really stood out to me, and like something that I liked on first listen. And sometimes usually for a Eurovision song, it takes me a couple like really get into it. But this was like first listen, instant impact. If they have 5 songs like that, then they could really do very well at Eurovision. I'm on the fence. I wasn't quite sure how they would have been received at Eurovision. I feel like it could very easily have been a top 10, because it was something that stood out, and it was like nothing that we'd ever seen at Eurovision. That it was like nothing that was in the contest among the 2020 songs. So I don't see but however, there may have been implications that there may have been people that just didn't get it. But I do feel like it was a very instant impact song if you did. So I do think they had potential to come top 10. That's just my personal opinion, was to say. But so
I think for me, like obviously now that Go Away's been confirmed, whether they're gonna have a Go Away style competition, like a Vidbir style competition, we won't know. But to be fair, they're unique in their own genre as it is, and as we've seen from Vidbir, and also like in some of the performances that they've done, I think that they can bring something unique to the table, which I think can score really well wherever Eurovision might be next year.
Hopefully Rotterdam. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully Rotterdam.
hopefully.
We'll get press passes.
Oh yes, definitely. EBU, let us in! Let us
That's
in!
it.
We'll be that meme of the guy by the railings.
Oh yeah, it's just like, we just want to get in, please, let us have it.
Or the vine of the woman singing opera trying to get in the bus.
I love that vibe. It's so good. It's honestly, that is the most relatable thing. It's probably us at the moment banging from inside our houses trying to get outside. To go like, ah,
It'll be us outside the doors of the Ahoy next year.
100%. I think just one final thing that I was thinking of. So Go Away and Solive reminded me an awful lot of Tulia last year with Paluche. Now, where I think Tulia fell flat, I think Go Away has managed to correct, and I think that's why Go Away is a lot more popular, especially in the Eurovision fandom, because they both have similar styles of that kind of white voice singing, and they're both very obviously ethnic, and they're both very culturally rooted in Eastern European Slavic culture. But I think, given how Solive is kind of a bit more modern in the sense that there's kind of drums, electronic beats in there, I think that's what Paluche was missing. And that's saying that's coming from a Paluche stan, I have to say. But I think
The other reason why Paluche failed was the Belarusian jury.
oh yeah, we don't need to bring up the Belarusian jury. We love Belarus, got it deep inside. Yeah. So, are there any sort of final points that we like to make on Ukraine, just on how they perceive the contest, what other countries could possibly take from their approach?
Like, I feel like a country such as the UK, like inviting like different, like if you're going to have a national final, like inviting different styles of like music into the national final, so the public have like more of a choice, variety of to choose from, and they can make the best choice for Eurovision, because I feel like that's something that Ukraine do quite well.
Like their national final is very artist-led as well. Like the songs that get put in there aren't manufactured for Eurovision. They're songs that are very authentic to the artists' voices and their styles and what they would usually be producing. So I feel like that is something that people can definitely take away from it.
I think for me it's kind of like Ukraine knows what it knows how to do well. Well, I mean qualifying at least, and just say all I'm gonna say is keep doing what you're doing. You're doing well, or like have that gif of Chris Jenner. It's like you're doing well, sweetie.
You're doing great, sweetie.
Sweetie.
Except sub that in with Jamala just like doing the heart sign to Lake Malawi. See, with me, I would love the amount of commitment for that Ukraine delivers. The fact that Vidbir can last up to about 3 hours for a show that's only supposed to be about an hour and a half long shows that they are willing to go over and beyond, just to make sure that they have selected the right person to represent their country, because this is someone who is representing their country on an international stage. So I think their attention to detail definitely needs to be kind of brought to countries who may not have that much of an interest. I think maybe perhaps countries like Spain might need to kind of take that on a little bit. As well as that, I do think maybe inviting other countries' songs into the national selection, I think, is also a very good thing as well. And yeah, that's kind of like the main thing, because Vidbir, it's a very well established formula now, and it's a very well established TV show. So, like we said before, why fix what's not broken?
I think also before we go, I just want to embarrass Rory by remembering and bringing up the time to everyone when we first met at Manchester Calling and Siren
God.
Song came on and both of us threw ourselves on the floor to do the dance.
To be fair, I think that's a normal thing for every Eurovision event.
I did it in Euroclub in Tel Aviv, so...
If you don't put yourself on the floor, especially during that second chorus when she does the leg gun, I think you're not a real Eurovision fan, let's be real. Who does it? Who would not do that, honestly?
If you've been to a Eurovision event and you've done it at least once, then...
Not lived.
Yeah.
You'll have actually, you are 100% into the Euro fandom. If you do at least one form of dancing. For example, when the Roop came on in Manchester Calling as well, the amount of people who did the Roop dance at the same time, honestly, that in itself was a cultural reset.
People to do the My Lucky Day routine with me and no one else would do it, and I was really sad, so I was trying to do all three parts by myself.
Next time I will do it with you.
I'll do it with you as well.
Yeah.
So we'll be our own Dorados. Oh dear. Anyway, right, it's best probably we end this episode because we've probably been rambling on for far too long. But yeah, so we've come to the end of the 4th episode of that Eurovision podcast. I'd like to thank Rosie, Jazzi and Tim again for joining. Of course, it's been great talking about pretty much everyone's favourite Eurovision country, I think, so far, given the fact the amount of optimism and positivity we've heard from everyone. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be continuing on with a couple of other Eurovision countries and their approach to the contest, but we may also have a couple of extra surprises for you. So in the meantime, please continue to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at That Euro Podcast. We're also now on Spotify as well, so if you want to give us a follow there, just search That Eurovision Podcast as well. And for the meantime, we'll be seeing you next week. So does everyone want to say bye-bye?
Bye.
Protect the NHS. Save lives.
Save lives. Stay indoors, please. Stay safe.
Stay home.
Right, bye.
Bye.